The night of the Orion launch. $5 billion waiting on a signature. One system that had to run flawlessly. Daniel Reeves slammed his palm on the glass table.
Let me be perfectly
Anyone who
clear,
fixes
we
the
are
session
moving
drop out
forward
after
with the
47
acquisition.
minutes, I'll pay whatever it takes. The room laughed when they saw her. Emily, 14 years old, standing next to her mother's cleaning cart, clutching a worn notebook and a pencil. Nathan smirked. Careful, kid. Don't trip over the cables. Emily didn't blush from the mockery. She blushed because she heard it tick-tick-tick off rhythm. 3 beats, then a skip. Like a broken clock inside the encryption module. She remembered her grandfather's words, the old sergeant. Integrity is doing right when nobody's watching. If they sign now,
Excuse
sync,
me,
drift,
I
lock,
believe
fail, your
there's been a
data
mistake.
collapse. Emily swallowed hard and stepped forward. Please don't sign yet. I only need 3 lines. Enough to save everything. The conference room felt like a courtroom. Investors lined the back wall. Journalists checked their watches. Camera lights blinked red, waiting for the historic moment when Reeves Tech would sign the largest cross-border payment infrastructure deal in the company's history. Victor Hale stood at the front, his smile tight and rehearsed. He needed this to look smooth, confident, controlled. Nathan Cole lounged in his chair, phone angled to capture everything for his live stream. Making history tonight, folks, he whispered into the camera. Front row seats to the future. Then Emily spoke. Please don't sign yet. The laughter started small. A chuckle from the back, a snort from Nathan. Then it spread like wildfire through the room. Victor's smile turned sharp. This isn't a playground, sweetheart. Adults are working. Daniel Reeves looked up from his watch. His eyes were cold, calculating. Time is money. If you have proof, show it. If not, leave. Emily didn't flinch. She'd practiced this moment in her head 100 times during her mother's night shifts, sitting in the empty cafeteria with her notebook listening to the building breathe. I can prove it, she said quietly. Give me a blind test. Let me record the LED patterns and log timestamps for 10 test runs. If the error happens at the same delta T every single time, then it's not random. And if it's not random, you need to let me stay. Victor scoffed. We don't have time for 10 minutes, Emily interrupted. Her voice was steady now. I won't touch any equipment. I'll just watch, count, compare. That's your lab protocol, right? Observe first, hypothesize second. Ava Nguyen, the youngest engineer on the team, leaned forward. She'd been silent all night, but something in Emily's tone made her pay attention. Daniel tilted his head. 10 runs. You get 15 minutes total. If you're wasting our time, you and your mother leave this building tonight. Understood. Emily nodded. Her hands were shaking, but she opened her notebook to a fresh page. The tests began. Emily stood perfectly still, eyes locked on the status panel. She didn't watch the screens like the engineers did. She watched the rhythm, the breathing pattern of the system. In her notebook, she wrote 10, 47, 03, 10, 47, 34, 10, 48, 11, 10, 48, 39, 10, 49, 14. Between each timestamp, she scribbled small notes. LED flicker at handshake. Pause. Retry kick. 3 beats off. Nathan zoomed in with his phone camera, snickering. Look at her. She thinks she's a detective. But Ava was looking too. She pulled up the internal logs on her tablet, cross-referencing quietly. Her eyes widened. The timestamps matched. Every single dropout occurred at the exact same interval after the encryption handshake began. The delta matched the exponential back-off retry pattern, a timing loop that shouldn't have been anywhere near the encryption layer. When the 10th test finished, Emily closed her notebook and looked up at Daniel. Every failure happens exactly 0.017 seconds after the NTP failover tries to resync during the encryption handshake. It's not a hardware problem. It's not bad luck. It's a feedback loop. The room went silent. Victor's face flushed red. That's impossible. We tested. You tested at normal load, Emily said. Not at signing load. Not when the retry backoff collides with the time-sensitive encryption window. Ava held up her tablet. She's right. Look at the logs. Every dropout aligns with her timestamps. Daniel Reeves stood slowly. He walked to the front of the room and stared at the status board. The flashing yellow light that had haunted them for 3 days suddenly made sense. He turned to Emily. His voice was low, dangerous, but there was something else underneath it now. Respect. You have your 15 minutes, Miss Carter. Now tell me how to fix it. Nathan stopped recording. Victor sat down hard in his chair, and Emily Carter, 14-year-old daughter of a night shift housekeeper, opened her notebook to the page where she'd already written the answer. Morning came too fast. The signing ceremony had been postponed. The investors were angry. The press was circling. Daniel called an emergency meeting at 6 a.m. His tie was loosened. His eyes were bloodshot. We have 24 hours before the partners walk. 24 hours to prove this system works, or we lose everything. Victor stood at the whiteboard, defensive. We can roll back to the previous version. It's stable. It's also missing the features they paid for, Daniel shot back. We need the new encryption layer. That was the entire pitch. Nathan leaned back in his chair, grinning. This is great content. Billionaire CEO's nightmare company implodes on launch night. He typed something on his phone. Emily sat in the corner with her mother, who'd been asked to stay after her shift ended. Sarah held her daughter's hand tightly, worried. This wasn't their world. These people could destroy them with a word. But Emily's mind was racing. She'd spent the rest of the night in the empty cafeteria drawing diagrams, retracing the logic. She knew what was wrong. She just needed them to see it. We need to run a controlled test, Emily said quietly. The room turned to look at her. Victor crossed his arms. We've run dozens of tests. Not like this. Emily stood up, her notebook clutched to her chest. We need an A-B test. Version A runs normally. Version B forces a resync delay exactly 17 milliseconds right when the encryption handshake starts. If my theory is right, version B will fail at the exact moment I predicted. Version A will run perfectly. Nathan laughed. You want us to intentionally break the system? I want you to prove where it's already broken, Emily replied. Daniel looked at Ava. Can you set that up? Ava nodded slowly. I can configure it. It'll take about 30 minutes. Do it. The test ran at 8 a.m. The conference room was packed again, but this time the energy was different. Tense. Expectant. 2 monitors side by side. Version A on the left, version B on the right. Both systems initialized. Both started the encryption handshake sequence. Version A's status lights glowed steady green. Version B's lights flickered. Paused. Then died exactly where Emily had marked in her notebook. The room went completely silent. Victor's face drained of color. That's not possible. We reviewed every line of... You added an exponential back-off retry to improve reliability, Emily interrupted. Her voice was calm, measured. But you didn't block it during the encryption handshake. When the NTP failover happens, and it happens randomly because you have 2 time sources fighting each other, the retry loop collides with the time-sensitive encryption window. It creates a feedback loop. The system chases its own tail until it crashes. Daniel stared at the dead monitor. You're telling me a timing issue this precise has been sitting in our code for 3 days and none of my engineers caught it? We were looking at hardware, Victor said weakly. We thought it was a server issue or network latency or... You thought it was everything except the code you just committed, Daniel said coldly. Nathan stopped smiling. This wasn't funny anymore. This was someone's career ending in real time. Emily took a breath. It's fixable, I know how. Daniel turned to her. His expression was unreadable. Show me. Victor opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. He knew he'd lost the room. Ava pulled up the configuration files on the main screen. What do you need? Emily stepped forward, her worn notebook open to a page covered in careful handwriting. I need 2 things, she said. A screenshot of last night's patch diff, and read-only access to the orion.nc.yaml file. Daniel nodded to Ava. Give her what she needs. The countdown had begun. Ava pulled up the patch diff on the main screen. Lines of code scrolled past green additions and red deletions marking what had changed in last night's emergency update. Emily stood close to the screen, her eyes scanning methodically. Not like someone guessing. Like someone reading a language she understood. There, she said, pointing. Line 847. You added retry equals exponential backoff to improve fault tolerance. But there's no conditional. No check to see if the encryption handshake is active. Victor stepped forward. That retry logic is standard. It's been in production systems for years. In systems where timing doesn't matter down to the millisecond, Emily replied. But encryption handshakes are time-sensitive. If the retry fires during the handshake window, it introduces jitter. And when your NTP source is already unstable. Wait. Ava pulled up another file. We're not running unstable NTP. Emily shook her head. You're running 2 NTP sources with automatic failover. I saw it in the infrastructure logs. Primary is time.retech.net. Secondary is pool.ntp.org. When the system detects latency on the primary, it switches to secondary. But the 2 sources aren't perfectly synced. There's a drift. Small. Maybe 5 to 20 milliseconds. Normally harmless. She turned back to the screen. But when that drift happens during an active encryption handshake, and the retry logic is also firing, you get a cascade. The session keys are generated using timestamps. If the timestamp shifts mid-generation, the keys don't match on both ends. The handshake fails. The retry fires again. The loop continues until the session times out. The room was silent. Daniel leaned forward. You're saying the problem isn't one thing. It's 3 things happening at the exact same moment. Yes. Emily opened her notebook to the page she'd prepared. And the fix is also 3 things. 3 lines. Configuration level only. No core code changes needed. She took a breath and read from her notes. Line 1, disable retry during encryption handshake. Add the conditional retry. NC handshake equals off. Ava typed it into a test configuration file, her fingers moving quickly. Line 2, lock to a single time source during handshake. Set ntp.primary equals time.retech.net. Set ntp. Failover equals disabled during enc handshake. More typing. Nathan had stopped filming. He was actually watching now. Line 3, regenerate session keys after anytime resync. Add the trigger on NTP resync regenerate session keys. Emily closed her notebook. That's it. 3 configuration changes. No code refactor, no system rebuild. Just patch the timing logic. Victor stared at the screen. That's a configuration patch, not even a code fix. Because it's not a code problem, Emily said quietly. It's a timing coordination problem. You built good pieces. They just weren't talking to each other at the right moments. Daniel looked at Ava. Can you implement this now? Already done, Ava said. She clicked a button. Applying to test environment. They ran the test again. Version A with the old configuration. Version B with Emily's 3-line patch. The encryption handshake initialized. The status lights flickered. Everyone held their breath. Version A failed at 47 minutes, right on schedule. Version B ran clean, 50 minutes, 60, 75. The timeline graph was flat as steel. No jitter, no drift, no cascade failure. They ran it 2 more times. Perfect. Then a 3rd time with artificial load spikes. Still perfect. Nathan stared at his phone. He'd recorded the old failure last night, planning to leak it to tech blogs. CEO's system collapses, company in chaos. The video was already edited, ready to post. But now there was no story. Just a 14-year-old girl who'd solved in 3 lines what a team of senior engineers couldn't fix in 3 days. Daniel stood and walked to the window. The city was waking up outside. Morning light cut through the glass. He turned back to the room. Victor, explain to me why this patch wasn't tested under signing load before we scheduled the ceremony. Victor's face went pale. We were under deadline. We prioritized feature completion over edge case testing. Edge case. Daniel's voice was ice. This isn't an edge case. This is the exact scenario we were building for. Emily stayed quiet. She'd done her part. The rest wasn't hers to fight. But Ava spoke up. I flagged this in code review. I sent an email warning about retry logic in the encryption layer. It was marked as low priority. Daniel's jaw tightened. Meeting. My office. 30 minutes. Victor, Nathan, Ava. Miss Carter, you too. The reckoning had begun. Daniel's office was sparse, floor-to-ceiling windows, a single desk, no decorations, no warmth, just results and consequences. Victor sat stiffly in his chair. Nathan leaned back, trying to look unconcerned but failing. Ava stood near the door, arms crossed. Emily sat next to her mother, who hadn't let go of her hand since they'd entered. Daniel didn't sit. He stood at the window, looking out at the city, his back to them. "Victor," he said quietly, "walk me through the merge approval process for last night's patch." Victor cleared his throat. "We had a tight deadline. The partners were arriving. We needed the encryption layer functional. I approved the merge after a quick review." "Quick." Daniel turned around. "Define quick." 30 minutes. I checked the core logic. It was sound. And the edge cases, the load testing, the timing analysis. Silence. Daniel pulled out his phone and read from the screen. Email. Sent 3 days ago. From Ava Nguyen to Victor Hale and the engineering team. Subject warning: retry logic in encryption layer. Quote, "The new exponential backoff may interfere with time-sensitive encryption handshakes. Recommend gating retry logic with conditional checks before merge." End quote. He looked up. "You marked it as low priority and proceeded with the merge anyway. Why?" Victor's composure cracked. "We didn't have time to rewrite the retry system. The feature was already behind schedule. I made a judgment call." "You made a gamble," Daniel corrected, "with $5 billion on the table. I was trying to save the deadline by ignoring the one engineer who actually caught the problem." Daniel's voice was steel. "And when the system failed, you blamed hardware. You blamed network latency. You blamed everything except your own oversight." Victor's face flushed red. "Ava should have escalated harder. She should have—" "She did her job," Daniel interrupted. "She documented the risk. She sent the warning. You chose to ignore it." He turned to Nathan. "And you? What's on your phone?" Nathan hesitated. "What do you mean? Show me your phone, now." Nathan's confidence evaporated. He unlocked his phone and handed it over. Daniel scrolled through the video gallery. His expression darkened. A draft video, titled, "Reeves Tech Meltdown, CEO Panics as System Dies." "You filmed the failure last night. You were planning to leak this." "I was documenting." "You were preparing to sabotage this company for views." Daniel's voice was quiet, dangerous. "You filmed proprietary system failures. You edited a smear video. And you were going to post it before we had a chance to fix the problem." Emily spoke softly. "He filmed when the error was still live. If he posts that now after we've fixed it, he's not documenting. He's lying." Nathan turned to her, defensive. "I have the right to share what I see." "You have the right to tell the truth," Emily said. "Not to manufacture a crisis that doesn't exist anymore." Daniel deleted the video. He deleted the draft. He deleted every copy. Then he handed the phone back. "Your internship is terminated, effective immediately. I'll be sending an email to your father explaining why. Reeves Tech chooses truth over influence, always." Nathan stood abruptly. "My dad is a major partner. You can't—" "I just did." Daniel opened the door. "Security will escort you out." Nathan left his face red with humiliation and rage. Daniel turned back to Victor. "You're not fired, but you're signing a new protocol. Every merge goes through peer review with at least 2 engineers. Every warning flagged as low priority requires written justification. And you're stepping down from direct approval authority until you rebuild trust with your team." Victor nodded slowly. He looked 10 years older. "Ava," Daniel continued, "you're lead engineer on the Orion project now, effective immediately." Ava's eyes widened. "Sir, You saw the problem. You documented it. You supported the solution. That's leadership." He looked at Emily. "And Miss Carter, we need to discuss payment." Emily glanced at her mother. Sarah squeezed her hand. "I don't want payment," Emily said quietly. "I want something better." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." Daniel sat down for the first time since the meeting began. "I made a promise. I said I'd pay whatever it takes. Name your price." Emily opened her notebook to a page she'd written during the long night. Not calculations, not code, just words. I don't want money for myself, she said. I want you to create something, a fund. Call it the Night Shift Micro Grant. Daniel leaned forward. Explain. Emily's voice was steady. My mom works nights. So do dozens of other people in this building. Cleaning crews, security guards, maintenance staff. Most of them have kids. Kids who do homework in break rooms, who study in empty cafeterias, who fall asleep on lobby couches waiting for their parents' shifts to end. Sarah's grip on her daughter's hand tightened. Those kids are invisible, Emily continued. They see everything. They hear everything. They're smart and curious and capable. But they don't have access. No tutoring, no equipment, no programs, no way to learn the skills that could change their lives. She looked directly at Daniel. I want you to create a grant program. Scholarships, laptops, night bus passes, coding classes, science kits. Whatever these kids need to learn, make it real. Make it sustained. Make it matter. Daniel was silent for a long moment. You're asking me to build infrastructure for people I didn't know existed in my own building. Yes. And you won't take any payment for yourself. The grant is the payment, Emily said. Not just for me, for everyone like me. Victor, still processing his demotion, spoke up quietly. That's actually brilliant. Employee family investment programs have been shown to increase retention and loyalty. The optics alone. This isn't about optics. Daniel cut him off. He looked at Emily. You're serious. You want systemic change, not a reward. I want other kids to have what I didn't, Emily said simply. A chance. Daniel stood and walked to his desk. He pulled out a sheet of paper and began writing by hand. Here's what I'm proposing, he said as he wrote. The Night Shift Micro Grant. Administered by an independent board. 3 community members. 1 Reeves Tech representative. 1 parent from the night shift staff. Transparent reporting. Public accountability. He kept writing. Eligibility: any child of a night shift employee in this building. Funding priority: educational resources, technology, access, transportation skills, training. No application fees. No bureaucratic barriers. If you're a kid who wants to learn, you get support. Period. Emily felt tears prickling her eyes but kept her voice steady. And it has to be protected. No one gets punished for applying. No one loses their job because their kid asks for help. Agreed. Daniel signed the document. I'll have legal draft the formal charter today. It launches with the signing of the $5 billion deal. The partners will see that Reeves Tech invests in people, not just systems. He looked at Sarah. Mrs. Carter, your daughter just saved this company. But I'm guessing she learned her values from you. Sarah's voice shook. I just taught her to be honest, to work hard, to notice things. You taught her to care about more than herself, Daniel corrected. That's rarer than you think. He pulled out another document. Reeves Tech offers education reimbursement for employees. I'm fast-tracking your application. You mentioned once wanting to get a facilities management certification. Consider it approved, full tuition, flexible scheduling around your shifts. Sarah's eyes widened. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Daniel replied. Your daughter just taught me that the people I overlook might be the ones who save everything. I'm not making that mistake again. He turned back to Emily. The grant launches next month. You'll be the first recipient. Not because you solved the problem, because you showed us what we should have been doing all along. Emily closed her notebook. Her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. Integrity is doing right when nobody's watching. But someone had been watching. Just not the people they expected. Thank you, Emily said quietly. Daniel shook his head. I should be thanking you. You didn't just fix a system. You fixed the way I see my own company. Outside the window, the sun was fully up. A new day, a new beginning. 3 weeks later, the Orion system was running flawlessly. The $5 billion deal was signed. The partners were satisfied. The press had moved on to other stories. But inside Reeves Tech, something fundamental had shifted. Daniel stood in front of the entire engineering department. No slides, no charts. Just a whiteboard with 3 words written at the top: small signal, big priority. "We almost lost everything," he began. "Not because of bad code, not because of incompetence, but because we stopped paying attention to the small things, the details, the rhythms, the patterns that don't fit." He picked up a marker. "Starting today, we're implementing a new protocol. It's called the Small Signal Checklist. Any anomaly, no matter how minor, gets documented, counted, cross-referenced: a flickering LED, an unusual sound, a timing pattern that repeats. We write it down. We investigate. We don't dismiss it." Ava stood beside him. "We're also introducing tick-tick-tick hour. Once a week, every engineer turns off their dashboard. No metrics, no graphs, just observation. You watch the system with your eyes, listen with your ears, describe what you see in plain language, like you're explaining it to someone who's never seen a computer." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some engineers looked skeptical, others intrigued. Victor raised his hand. He looked different now. Humbler, tired but present. "I want to say something." Daniel nodded. Victor walked to the front. "I made a mistake, a big one. I prioritized speed over safety, ego over evidence, and I ignored a warning that could have prevented a disaster." He paused. "But I want to share something. A long time ago, when I was a junior engineer, I heard a clicking sound coming from a server rack. It sounded like a hard drive starting to fail. I logged it. My supervisor dismissed it as normal wear. 3 days later, that drive crashed. We lost 6 months of research data." He looked around the room. "I swore I'd never ignore small signals again. But somewhere along the way, I forgot. I got busy. I got confident. I stopped listening." His voice dropped. "It took a 14-year-old girl to remind me how to do my job." The room was silent. "So here's the new rule," Victor continued. "The whistleblower protection protocol. Anyone in this building, engineer, intern, custodian, visitor, who identifies a potential problem is protected. No retaliation, no mockery, no consequences. We investigate every signal, every time." Daniel wrote it on the whiteboard. "This isn't optional. This is culture. This is who we are now." Ava stepped forward again. "One more thing. We're launching a weekend learning program, open to the children of night shift staff. We'll teach observation skills, basic logic, simple coding, small projects that build critical thinking. It's not charity, it's investment." She smiled slightly. "Emily Carter will be helping design the curriculum. She's teaching our first session next Saturday." Applause started somewhere in the back. It spread through the room. After the meeting, Victor found Emily in the cafeteria, where she often studied while waiting for her mother's shift to end. "Can I sit?" he asked. Emily nodded. Victor sat down heavily. "I owe you an apology, a real one, not the corporate kind." "You already apologized in the meeting." "That was for them," Victor said. "This is for you. I looked at you and saw a kid with a notebook. I didn't see someone who had something to teach me. That was arrogant, and it was wrong." Emily closed her textbook. "You know what my grandfather told me. He said the hardest thing in the world isn't admitting you're wrong. It's staying humble after you're right." Victor smiled sadly. "Your grandfather was a wise man. He also said good people make mistakes. Great people learn from them. And what do I become if I learn from this?" Emily thought for a moment. "Someone who listens better next time." Victor stood. He extended his hand. Emily shook it. "Thank you," he said, "for not letting me ignore what mattered." "Thank you," Emily replied, "for not staying the person who ignored it." Outside the window, the night shift was arriving. Cleaning carts rolled through hallways. Security guards checked IDs. Maintenance workers tested systems. And somewhere in the building, children were opening new laptops paid for by a grant that wouldn't exist without one girl who refused to stay silent. The first night after the announcement, Reeves Tech released a statement. Short, simple, true. "The Orion system is fully operational. The partnership agreement has been signed without errors, without delays, without compromise. We choose truth over convenience, always." Reporters called asking for details. Who fixed the system? What went wrong? Was there a cover-up? Daniel gave them one sentence. The solution came from someone who listened when others didn't. He never mentioned Emily's name, never turned her into a headline, never exploited her story for publicity, because she'd asked him not to. "I don't want to be famous," she'd told him. "I just want kids like me to have a chance." So her name stayed private, protected, the way it should be. In the night shift break room, things were changing. New lockers installed with charging stations, a study table with good lighting, a small library of textbooks and notebooks free for anyone to take. Sarah Carter sat at that table. Now her facilities management coursework spread in front of her. Her supervisor had adjusted her schedule. 3 nights a week for work, 2 nights a week for classes. It was tight, exhausting, but possible. Emily sat across from her, helping quiz her on safety protocols. "What's the first step in lockout-tagout procedures?" Emily asked. Sarah smiled. "Notify affected employees, de-energize equipment, apply lockout device, verify zero energy state." Perfect. The door opened. 3 kids walked in, children of other night shift workers. They were carrying the notebooks that had been distributed last week, simple spiral bounds with the Reeves Tech logo and a quote on the first page, "Small details, big impact." "Is this the study group?" one of them asked shyly. Emily grinned. "It is now. Pull up chairs." She taught them the same thing her grandfather had taught her. Not coding, not engineering, just observation. "Watch the ceiling fan," she said, pointing up. "Count how many rotations it makes in 30 seconds. Write it down. Now listen. Does the motor sound smooth or does it catch?" The kids watched, counted, listened. "It catches," one boy said. "Every 7th rotation, like a little skip." "Exactly," Emily said. "That's a small signal. Might mean nothing. Might mean the bearing is wearing out. But you noticed it. You documented it. That matters." She wrote on the whiteboard, "DT, small consequences large." In systems, in life, in everything, tiny differences in timing change outcomes. A second too late, a detail ignored, a pattern dismissed. Those small things decide whether systems succeed or fail, whether people get heard or forgotten. The kids copied it into their notebooks, serious and focused. Daniel Reeves stood in the doorway watching. He didn't interrupt, didn't announce himself, just observed. He'd spent 30 years building systems, hiring experts, trusting credentials. And he'd almost lost everything because he stopped noticing the people who noticed everything. A 14-year-old with a pencil and a notebook had taught him more about leadership in 3 days than a decade of business school. Emily looked up and saw him. She didn't stop teaching, just gave a small nod. Daniel nodded back. Then he did something he'd never done before. He stayed silent. He didn't offer advice, didn't take over, didn't assert authority. He just let her lead. Because sometimes the most important thing a leader can do is step back and let the right person step forward. When the session ended, the kids filed out, chattering excitedly about patterns and signals and details they'd never noticed before. Sarah packed up her coursework. Emily gathered the notebooks. Daniel finally spoke. "You're changing this company." Emily shook her head. "I'm just teaching them to pay attention. You're the one who decided to listen." "I'm still learning," Daniel admitted. "Good," Emily said. "That means you're doing it right." She walked out with her mother back into the hallways where they'd always belonged but had never been truly seen. Until now. The building hummed with life. Systems running smoothly. People working quietly. And in the margins, in the spaces nobody used to notice, seeds of change were taking root. One small signal at a time. Have you ever seen one tiny detail flip the whole outcome? Share a quick note in the comments and hit subscribe.